Today, a powerful earthquake hits Afghanistan, killing hundreds. China kicks off a summit positioning Beijing as a challenger to US dominance. Iran-backed militias recalibrate in Gaza, Lebanon and Yemen after an Israeli attack killed the Houthi prime minister. And Indonesia's president makes a U-turn after deadly riots. It's Monday, September 1st. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. I'm Kim Vanel in Wanganui, New Zealand. First to some breaking news in Afghanistan, where hundreds of people are dead in the northeast after a magnitude 6 earthquake. Helicopters ferrying the wounded to hospital. More than 600 people were killed and more than 1,500 are injured. That's according to the Taliban-run Interior Ministry. Guatemalan children who arrived in the US unaccompanied are waiting to learn their fate after a dramatic middle-of-the-night court ruling stopped their deportation, as some were already in planes waiting on the tarmac. The emergency appeal to keep the children in the US was filed 1 a.m. Sunday. A federal judge woke up at 2:30 that morning to intervene, issuing an order to halt their removal for 2 weeks.
利用超大规模市场优势
President Xi Jinping opens a summit in Tianjin, unveiling his ambitions for a new global order to challenge the United States. Xi met with India's Narendra Modi, with India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri describing a new era of cooperation between the two former rivals.
That a stable and amicable relationship between India and China can be to the benefit of the 2.8 billion people who live in the two countries.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin is also there and will hold talks with his Iranian and Turkish counterparts. North Korea's Kim Jong-un is expected to arrive on Tuesday. Israel is considering annexing parts of the occupied West Bank in response to countries recognizing a Palestinian state. Annexation would mean formally declaring Israeli sovereignty, turning de facto control into a permanent legal claim. Critics say it could mark the end of a possible two-state solution. Meanwhile, a post-war plan for Gaza could see the US controlling the war-torn enclave for at least a decade. That's according to a Washington Post report, citing a 38-page prospectus circulating within President Donald Trump's administration. Under the proposal, 2 million people in Gaza would be relocated, and the Strip would be rebuilt as a tourist resort and manufacturing hub. The White House and State Department did not immediately respond to request for comment. And in Gaza right now, a rare syndrome which is causing paralysis is surging, and the UN's health body says it's run out of medical supplies to treat it. Nearly 100 cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome, an immune disorder, have been reported in the past 3 months. The surge is linked to infections caused by poor water and sanitation conditions due to the war. And in Barcelona, thousands of supporters sending off a flotilla of boats loaded with aid for Gaza. Activist Greta Thunberg is on board. It's her second attempt to break Israel's naval blockade and deliver food and other humanitarian supplies into the enclave. Over in Yemen, the Houthis have attacked a UN office, detaining at least 11 people. It follows Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi vowing revenge on Israel after Israeli strikes killed Houthi Prime Minister Ahmed Ghalib al-Rawi and several ministers. Maha al-Dahan has more.
So this was a blow to the Houthis in the sense of this was the biggest attack that wiped out a large number of their senior figures, which could lead Yemenis also to question, this aura they've placed around themselves of being basically impenetrable. But in terms of practicalities, in terms of the everyday situation, in their capabilities to attack, it doesn't seem that it will affect them that much.
Maha says this is part of increasing Israeli attacks on all militias with ties to Iran, so that's Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon.
I mean, Iranian-backed militias across the region have been given severe blows over the past couple of years. And so really, out of all the Iranian axis, the Houthis seem like they're largely escaping unscathed. They've managed to build actually quite a following off of their Red Sea attacks in support of Gaza in terms of trying to make themselves more popular for it in the Arab world and even globally.
Markets remain cautious as tariff uncertainty lingers. Wall Street is closed for the holiday, leaving S&P 500 futures flat, while much of Asia is trading lower and European shares are barely moving. The dollar is drifting as investors await a raft of US labour data this week, including Friday's jobs report. That report could shape the size of the Fed's expected rate cut later this month. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum is preparing for her first State of the Union, and she's expected to strike a calm tone amid rising pressure from Washington. That pressure is being felt acutely in Mexico's manufacturing heartland, where thousands of factory jobs have disappeared. Here's Reuters correspondent Mariana Hernandez, who's been reporting from Ciudad Juárez.
So cities like Ciudad Juárez are going through a crisis due to the uncertainty of the tariffs. These are cities that depend mostly on the trade that they have with the US because they have a lot of assembly plants. Recently, foreign direct investment in Mexico fell 21% in the first quarter of 2025. Compared to, let's say, the same period last year, companies are holding off on making new investments in Mexico because of this uncertainty of the trade policy. It's changing how investors are moving money towards Mexico, and we're seeing a lot of changes in manufactureras going to the southern part of Mexico as well because of lower minimum wage and also to Central America.
Dan juga moratorium
Indonesia's President Prabowo Subianto announcing a plan to revoke some perks and privileges for parliamentarians in a major concession to anti-government protests that left 5 people dead over the weekend. Student protests turned into riots, with people setting fire to a regional parliament and other buildings, angry over rising costs and low pay. Gibran Peshimam is in Jakarta.
These protests are very significant because they are the worst protests that this country has seen since the late 90s, and that was when a president was forced out of power. Since being elected last year, Prabowo Subianto has faced no political opposition from within the parliament, at least from political parties. So the only opposition he has faced thus far is from students and pressure groups and rights groups and labor groups. And these protests have sort of seen the boiling over of anger on the streets of what is being seen as Prabowo's fiscally irresponsible policies.
Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani is in hospital following a car crash near Manchester, New Hampshire on Saturday. The 81-year-old suffered a fractured vertebrae, a spokesman says, after his rental car was hit from behind at high speed. He's expected to recover and be released from hospital soon. And for today's recommended read, we head to Vietnam, where the country is celebrating the 80th anniversary of its independence from French rule. We'll drop a link to that story in the pod description. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.